Hello everyone, my name is Master Steve, and welcome back to some more Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 edition. Hope you're all doing well today, and I hope you guys will all enjoy these flights as we enjoy more of the career mode in this game. So this is the second day this game has been out, and honestly, it is so much better day 2. Day 1, I was having so many issues logging in, getting past the queue to actually get into the game, and today, absolutely no queue. Managed to load it at decent speeds, and everything went pretty smoothly. So career mode, I am, as of the start of this video, only at level 3, and the only thing I have access to are these little flight seeing tours. So all these are essentially you're taking out one or two passengers out in your little Cessna, and you're just flying them around a designated city or county, and then just taking them right back to the airport, and they grade you on, how good your takeoff was, how good your landing was, and they also grade you on like the speed of which you kind of circle the designated destination, and just overall the flight smoothness. There's a lot of stuff that can actually affect this. I mean, depending on like weather and just stuff like that. I mean, smoothness can get kind of graded down pretty harshly if you're in some bad weather conditions, like I was on my second flight. But overall, these are relatively easy. But I will say that easy to do, but they still grade you relatively harshly. I mean, if you have one slight little bump on that landing, you're gonna mark down below a 50%. Like, they are super specific, and I actually really like that a lot, because I like having a lot to do, and I like having, to master those little details. And this game is gonna be a lot of fun as we continue on our career mode. So the thing that I have to be doing right now is I have to be working towards my next, I think it's like multi-engine certification. And I need 15,000 credits to actually take that exam. And in order to do that, I have to just keep doing these little flight seeing tours. So all of these are worth about, they range between I think like 1,300 to 1,700 credits, and you get a decent amount of experience with them. I was getting about 22,000 each for them if I'm not skipping to the destination itself, and overall they're just kind of a very fun experience. So my headquarters is based out of Carson City, Nevada, so the only thing that I have access to are kind of these northern Nevada and northern California missions, which are actually kind of nice areas to fly over. Flying over northern California specifically, you have nice views of the Sierras and stuff, and kind of out here in northern Nevada, you have access to just, I don't know, beautiful deserts, and everything's flat, clear skies, super easy, actually kind of a nice spot for these preliminary missions. So this first one that I did was based out of Fallon, Nevada, which is about 60 miles east out of Reno. And I mean, it kind of is the middle of nowhere. There's only about 9,000 people that live out there, and it's home to pretty much just good agricultural industry. And you have I believe it's the Fallon Air Station. It's a Navy air base that's out there. It's kind of like the only things that there are to see out there, but overall the area itself is kind of a nice little starting mission. The thing that threw me off, though, was this very first takeoff I had to do. They expected me to make a U-turn at the end of the runway, and I'm like, dude, they give you like no room to do so that kind of made it difficult. Once I got that down, like I said, smooth takeoff right here, and the climb itself actually wasn't too high. It was only 600 feet, so you're actually pretty staying relatively low to the ground. It has some very nice views. So this first mission, this was literally my very first one, and it actually went relatively well. I was quite pleased with my takeoff, the passengers themselves. I do have to stress this a lot. I'm going to do this in pretty much every single video. The dialogue between the passengers is like the most monotone, annoying, boring thing ever. They have like, I would say the intonations in their speech are like all off. Like, they sound excited in spots where, like, they're not supposed to, and like all of their sentences end like just flat. And sometimes instead of saying like, I don't know, like someone will say, yeah, I'm like really enjoying this, the other one will just randomly say, I do too, instead of like, me too or something. Like, sometimes the dialogue between your passengers is super weird, and just, it throws me off, and it's kind of annoying. But just overall, I mean, it doesn't really affect the game that much. The game itself is still very fun overall. But it just drives me crazy sometimes. Some of them are actually kind of funny. So this first one I wanted to do is to fly out to Churchill County and just do a little loop and turn around. And, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to show every single second of all my flights on this. I'm just going to kind of skip to, like, takeoffs, maybe doing a little tour around some of them and landing. This one, the tour around the city, was not that exciting. I mean, just flying over farmland and a few buildings, and that was about it. So we're kind of going to skip back to the landing. And, I mean, the landing for this one, I mean, this was actually a little bit harder than I was expecting, and it kind of drove me crazy. So the final itself was actually not too bad, kind of coming in here. As you can see, it's kind of short, actually, which I really do enjoy. I was able to kind of, keep myself in line with all these gates, but the thing that I seem to be struggling with overall is just managing speed coming in from the landing. So as you're coming down, Your speed's increasing because, you are pointed downwards, and you have to manage your flaps just right and all that stuff, and it's hard to keep it smooth. So, originally when I first came in here, my passengers started freaking out, which was to be expected. I did kind of take that corner a little bit rough, and I dropped my flaps. I'm trying so hard to slow down. But like I said, the final is so short coming in this runway. I feel like I didn't have a lot of time to slow down, so I decided to drop my flaps all the way, just because I don't want to be coming in here at this runway at 100 knots or whatever. So I dropped it, and actually, I felt like my speed kind of dropped perfectly here at the end. We'll just kind of glided in, cut the engine, and like overall, this I felt like was going to be good, and nope, totally bounced that, but just slightly. But overall, we got on the ground just fine, and my passengers were immediately like, that was rough, whatever. So I'm like, okay. I really didn't. Looking at it now as I'm recording this video, honestly, like, come on, I bounced it once, just slightly. I didn't think that was that rough of a landing, and I thought I had it lined up pretty good, but I guess not. And they just did not like it. So, heads up if you guys are kind of grinding this out yourself, you make sure your landings are perfect. And I do like the fact that I did not have the landing down my very first try. It's something I'm definitely going to work at and get much, much better at. Which, that's what you want from the game. You want something to actually, grind, get better, and really, really focus and practice over and over and over again and master it. So I do actually really like the fact that I did not get this down my first try. I'm going to spend multiple videos and multiple missions just, practicing. So first one, not the greatest. I think overall for the mission I was rated as a B, which is not the worst, not the greatest, but in order to get some of these higher tier certifications for the airline passenger and all that, airline pilot, sorry, my bad. In order to get stuff like that, you have to have 15 A graded landings and stuff. So I need to make sure I get that down and actually, do a good job with that. So that was the only mission I did in Nevada. The next two I did were based in California, and this area is kind of an interesting one. I'm taking off. I'm not even exactly sure where the start runway for this one is. Like I said, sometimes some of these, they put you out in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of weird. So we're taking off out of someone's backyard, it looks like. Just whatever, but we're just taking two people out for, again, the same little thing of just, doing a little circle around the neighborhood. And I believe this one we're headed out to, now that I look at it, I believe this was the one I did going out to Rosemont. So just south of Sacramento, I believe, which is kind of a nice area. I've driven through there many, many times. So I know the area in particular, but I just don't know where my takeoff was. So all we're doing in this one is headed from whatever this is, just doing one circle around Rosemont. It's about, I think it said 9 kilometers away. So a decent flight out there, definitely going to take some time. But overall, super fun mission. So starting off here, like I said, we truly are in someone's backyard, basically. You're starting off on the dirt, which is super weird. And again, this one's going to make me go down to the very end and do a U-turn, which I'm kind of not a fan of. I can't wait till I unlock, the bigger airports that actually have more, I don't know, shall we say, more taxiways and actually, areas that can actually steer the plane, not do these little tight maneuvers at the end of the runway. So we'll get there eventually, but I guess for now, we're stuck with this, which is totally fine. So, starting off here, you got to signal the air traffic control tower, and you got to actually announce everything you're doing, which again, super, super nice. But this mission in particular, I think, was my worst one of the day, which is kind of embarrassing to say because that last mission I had, that landing was super, super bad. But this one, I think everything that could have went wrong, and it was just ridiculous. So like I said, starting off with the U-turn, don't like that, but the weather in this one was particularly bad. My plane was bouncing, every 5 seconds. It was ridiculous. It did not look like a smooth ride in the slightest, but I judged that for the weather. So I did not get marked down on this one for the smoothness of the flight, but as you can see, you get these huge storm clouds hovering over you, and it was super hard to manage my speed. I do not know why, but as I was flying out there, my speed was all over the place, and I don't know if it was due to weather or what, but I felt like my plane was just quite literally going all around nonstop, super, super bumpy, and I was having a hard time controlling it. And like I said, I could actually feel the difference the weather was making. My controller was shaking. This actually truly made a difference, and I do like that. It does make it a much, much bigger challenge, and it does make the game a lot more fun. So let's take off here. This was rough. And so I think the last one out in Fallon, I actually managed to make the U-turn just, I mean, barely off the pavement. This one, I had to go completely off in the dirt, swing back around at it. But I did get it lined up dead center. It was overall a decent takeoff into the initial climb. So that I'm pleased with. But just like I said, I cannot wait to get to these bigger airports and some of these later videos I'll be making because I just really want to get in those bigger passenger planes, start doing those, commercial airline missions, actually getting into the fun stuff. So like I said, smooth takeoff, and the area itself is actually kind of, pretty beautiful. We are kind of decently far out from the Sierras. Everything else around us is pretty flat. A lot of trees, a lot of grasslands, and decent stuff to look at. And actually, like I said, a very, very pretty flight. But the clouds were even making everything super, super hard. So I'm not going to show the full journey out to Rosemont. I kind of feel like that's unnecessary. I just feel like that's padding for time. But I just want to show really quick how bad the plane is moving. So if you look at this, I mean, I am not doing this with my joystick at all. I am like, this is all the weather. I mean, if you look at that plane, I mean, it is just non-stop, left, right, up, down. Like super, super hard to control. I mean, just driving me crazy. So, I mean, Rosemont itself was actually relatively far out. So, in this case, I actually did do the skip to flight seeing. And sometimes when you do this, I'm sure that they'll patch this out eventually. When you first come out of the skip, you have no control over your plane. And that can make it super hard to actually get the full credit you need for doing these missions. I do not know why that is, but for some reason the AI control of the plane does not let go of the plane even when you are giving commands on your controller. So that kind of made some things a little more difficult for me. It kind of flew me through the exact circle you're supposed to be doing with the plane. And I mean, I got marked down for it. My passengers weren't happy. They were complaining that, it's hard to see things when we're going so fast. And it's like, I'm not trying to get marked down for that. I was just trying to, get here a little faster, kind of, get some of these missions done. So don't recommend skipping unless it's absolutely necessary. This one I definitely could have not skipped and been just fine. So make sure you guys, aren't skipping unless you have to and actually enjoy the flying. But the view itself for this one is actually kind of nice, even with the storm clouds over this place. I mean, it's a really, really nice neighborhood. I've never actually driven through Rosemont or anything. I've driven through Sacramento, but Rosemont seems like a pretty decent area. Like I said, lots of houses, lots of nice things to look at. Decent. I mean, there's some water out there in the distance, but actually, actually a relatively nice flight. I actually really enjoyed this, and so I actually tried to make sure I was staying at the very, very bottom of the gates for this too. And I'm trying to figure out like I'll get rated higher for like the quality of the actual sightseeing if I'm staying down low or not. Sometimes you can actually get marked down for not staying at cruising altitude, so it's super super particular about that. Eventually I will get that mastered down, but we'll work on it. So I've completed that and I had to fly back to the Skyway Estates. I believe that's where we started. So that answers that question. But coming into the Skyway Estates, this was actually my best landing of the day, and I am super proud of this. So the flight back, I mean, if you look at this, again, the plane is just non-stop, back and forth. Like, you can actually have, I like that you can actually feel turbulence in this one. It really, really makes it a lot more enjoyable. And you actually feel like you're fighting the plane, and it actually keeps you more engaged with what you're doing. And I just, like I said, I really, really like that. I felt like in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I didn't have to do a lot of actually, controlling the plane. It really felt like I was just pointing from point A to point B, not to do too much. This one, I actually feel like, I'm being more of a pilot, and I'm actually, really, really enjoying it. So the area itself is actually, like I said, it's a very, very pretty flight. I actually really do enjoy it. Like I said, it's just southeast of Sacramento, I believe. And yeah, I'm looking it up right now, just southeast of Sacramento, and it's just a super pretty area. Just lots of people live out there, a lot of agriculture and stuff, and again, just a really, really nice spot. So in this mission in particular, the traffic pattern going in for the landing, I mean, it has a super, super long traffic pattern. And I have to admit, I did kind of cut it a little short at the corner up here, just because I didn't see the need to follow the entire traffic pattern. I mean, I know in real life you actually, I know pilots have to actually follow the exact path itself, but I figured, what's the harm in cutting a little corner up here and not exactly doing, the full right, left, cut back through the square, and then come down. I figured might as well just cut left and just come down immediately. And this landing was absolutely perfect, but again, it was super, super hard because of how much the plane was moving. So I'm still, I mean, as I'm watching this again while I'm, commentating over it and actually making this video, I really realized the speed was, again, something that's super, super hard to manage still. So as you're coming down into the flight pattern, I mean, in this one, the traffic pattern is like, very, very high above me. I kept it lower just because I didn't want to climb all the way up there and adjust my engine speed again. I feel like it might have been better if I actually would have, stayed at the correct altitude to start and worked my way down. But for this one, I really felt like staying at this altitude worked out better for me in a way it kind of did. But now that I look at it, like I said, it probably would have been better if I was a little higher up. But still, my biggest issue is managing my speed for landings. So like I said, as you're coming down, you're gaining speed, and you'll get, it will mark you down if you're going too fast with your flaps down. So you don't want to put those down immediately, but you do want to be going slow. So managing my engine power and managing my flaps, something I definitely still have to work on. Here's what I'm talking about. Instead of doing that full loop, I'm like, you know what? Why not just cut to the left? I don't think it's going to hurt anything. I honestly don't know if I got marked down for it or not. But, whatever. It's in the past, and this was kind of, it was my roughest mission, but at least, I got the landing down. That's good. So coming down here, I mean, seriously, this landing was absolutely beautiful. I had my speed below 80 knots the entire time, and I mean, I did drop my flaps just because I wanted to slow down and make sure I wasn't going to have a bumpy landing. I really, really hate the fact that if you just, bounce it once, you're gonna get marked down. I mean, I feel like anytime I actually fly in real life, I mean, pilot usually, we usually have a bumpy landing. It's kind of just standard for me. I never really have a smooth one occasionally, but I do really feel like every time in real life, it's always at least one bump and then coming to a halt. And this one, they expect it to be perfect every single time. So right there, as it says, AV performance, max speed with flaps down exceed. I got marked down for that, but I honestly don't really care at the moment just because I'm trying to get this down as smooth as I possibly can. And if I didn't put those flaps down, I really feel like my speed would have been so great coming into this landing, it would have been hard to stop on the runway. And I really, really am concerned about my speed on these little small runways in the middle of nowhere because if I'm going too fast, I'm going to go right off the edge of it, and like I said, I'm going to get marked down even worse for that. I'm going to fail the mission. So I'm more concerned about getting my passengers down safely instead of actually making sure everything's perfect, rated S tier. So coming in here, I mean, I cut my engine as hard as I could here, dropped the flaps, and I truly tried to just glide it in. I mean, as you can see, I am like well below the designated path it wants me to take, and I am trying my hardest to keep this low. And as I get down to the end here, I'm trying to pull my nose up and kind of slow myself down even more. And I truly am, right now, just gliding it in. So right up here at the last gate is when I decide, all right, I'm going to, cut my engine back just a little more. I mean, look at my speed. I'm just barely in the green, barely going the speed I need to go on. And I said, get up here, and I just keep slowing it down, flaps down, keep that nose pointing that, just above the horizon. I mean, this is just beautiful. I honestly thought I was going to just be biting the dirt here. I got a little concerned about that, and almost did, just barely kept it up. And, I mean, my wheel did tap just outside of the runway, but absolutely no bumps. My passenger did not complain. Actually, it was a smooth landing. So, I mean, I was about a foot off from having that perfect. Now that I look this back, I didn't realize it actually marked me down for that one wheel touch. I didn't even notice that happened, but I mean, like I said, just like a foot before the runway, it touched. So I guess it wasn't the perfect landing I thought it was, but for smoothness, it was perfect. So now this last mission that I did was actually one of the more fun ones. I actually really enjoyed this one. So as you level up, you can, like, your area of operations kind of increases, and it appears to increase in the direction of which you're doing your mission. So I kept doing more of these ones out in California, and every time I leveled up, I could actually operate out of a bigger area, kind of moving towards California. It's like inches, it's like circles stacking on top of each other on the map. So I finally reached the West Coast, and I was operating just south of San Francisco out of Half Moon Bay. So this one's actually really, really cool. This one was flying over San Bruno, I believe it was. I mean, the takeoff of this one was absolutely awesome. So again, it's the same thing, just taking two passengers off, and you're grading all the same things, the smoothness, all that stuff. I'm not going to go over that again. But this area in particular was actually really, really nice. So I did get immediately marked down for my taxiing speed, but honestly, don't really care about that because, I mean, it's such a long distance at the end of this runway that I wanted to go a little faster and make sure I wasn't just, wasting time for a video and going as fast as I possibly could because I don't like dragging things out. just unnecessarily. I want to make sure I'm actually, being productive with stuff. So, like I said, the taxiway on this one was super, super long, but this airport at least is respectable, and I actually have so much runway to work with. I mean, coming out here to the actual runway after I stopped at the hold short point was so, so satisfying and felt so good after, doing these two small runways earlier. This was absolutely awesome, and I loved this. So, like I said, the taxiway itself is huge. And I mean, it drives me crazy. It took me like a whole minute just to get down the end of the runway. But like I said, look at the amount of space I have on the taxiway itself. It is incredible. And honestly, I'm kind of glad it doesn't matter if you hit these cones. I did have too much speed going here and kind of, drifted off the taxiway a little bit, but I don't really care about that. But I mean, look at that runway out there. It's got so much more room. You compare that to the little farmland we are taking off from earlier. This is a dream. I am so, so happy I finally get to take out of a decent airport. And I mean, this will be so much better once I can fly an actual like 737, and eventually I'll get to that Beluga XL, cargo carrier thing. Eventually at level 90, but that's a long ways off. That's that end game grind. So get out here at the end of the runway, and now it's my takeoff from runway 12. And this is actually one of probably my favorite takeoffs so far from playing this game, because you come right out over the Pacific Ocean, and you're coming right over the mountains into San Bruno, and it's just super, super beautiful. So like I said, we're coming out here to the left, and just look, like I said, this is just so satisfying. I hate having to really go over this multiple times, but I mean, I just can't get over this. Look at how wide this runway is. I mean, that is so, so satisfying. And probably going to be one of the easier ones to land, even though I hate to admit it, I did bounce the plane once in the landing. I got marked down to a 13% from my landing. I didn't even think it was that bad, but, so be it. The weather on this one was actually much, much better, which I appreciated. Over San Bruno itself, there were a lot more clouds, but, I mean, the takeoff one was definitely a lot better on this one. As you can see, pretty much clear skies, and, I mean, coming over here, right over Half Moon Bay was just so gorgeous. I love the graphics of this game. I am playing on the Xbox Series X. I'm not like a high-powered gaming PC or anything. But for the Series X, this actually captured it pretty nicely. And again, this is a beautiful area. I love looking over the forest and all these different buildings, coming right over the bay on the initial climb. And again, just super, super pretty. Really, really like that. So, beautiful area. And I'll probably do a few more missions out of this airport itself, just because I love looking at that view coming out of the airport. I mean, coming back in for the landing was just as beautiful and just as incredible. So, super, super awesome. But as we come here, it wants to do a pretty steep climb over this mountain, which honestly was brutal. But I'm not going to show the entire flight out to San Bruno itself, because I kind of find that unnecessary. But I mean, San Bruno is actually the first interesting area I get to fly over, because there's a lot more to the places you're actually flying over than I realized. So, what I like to do when I'm actually doing these missions, I like to actually, learn something about the area. So when you're looking down, you're always like, wonder what that is, and it's actually kind of nice to actually learn something about the area as you're going over it. So like I said, as we come out over here, I'm just going to skip to the next part. We're actually over the actual area, because you guys don't need to see the full 15-minute flight out there. That's just a necessary waste of time. But here we go into San Bruno itself, and so I kind of messed this up. I wasn't very, very high above the actual, area of this, tour itself, but actually the area below me is really, really nice. So we're still out here by the ocean. We are just south of San Francisco. So we are actually super, super close to San Francisco International Airport itself, which is actually kind of cool. Eventually, we'll hopefully be able to fly a few missions in and out of there, because the San Francisco Airport is just huge. It's super, super nice. I mean, this area is home to so many different things. You have like the San Bruno Mountain, which is what the town is named out of, and like it's just super, super nice. You have the San Bruno Park, and you have, I believe it's the, oh my gosh, I've been through here. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's the Shops at Tanforan is what we're going to fly over. I think it's that mall area kind of down over here to the left we'll be passing over. I mean, yeah, there's so much different stuff around here. It's a huge transportation hub. Like, there's actually a lot of good stuff to see, and you're actually flying over. Look at the highways below us. So many different busy intersections, stuff like this. This was actually a super, super fun one to fly over. At the mountains, you got a huge city. Like, this one was actually super, super cool. So, the town itself is actually kind of small in size. I mean, like, San Francisco got a couple million people. San Bruno itself is much, much smaller. But, everyone that lives here typically, commutes up to San Francisco, and it's actually home of most of the San Francisco airport employees' homes, actually, which is kind of an interesting fact that I learned about this place. Yeah, only 45,000 people live in this little town, and overall, it's just a super pretty area to fly over. I really, really enjoyed it. So the mission itself, this one I was trying something new. I tried to keep my speed below 70. And, I kind of succeeded at that, and overall it went pretty well. You're only supposed to keep yourself below 87 knots for doing these little circle patterns over whatever town you're going over. And this time I tried to see if I'd go below 70, if it would break me higher, and honestly, it didn't. It didn't make any difference whatsoever. It was the exact same, which kind of sucked. I'm really trying everything I can to get like an S rating on these. But yeah, that little loop right there is actually really, really nice. The area is super pretty. I love California. Super, super pretty area, and just everything is such a joy to see from the skies. So now we're kind of come right back over to Half Moon Bay and kind of close out this video here. So flying over the mountains in this little plane is kind of a tedious thing. It does not climb very well, and it does expect you to kind of climb some steep angles from time to time, so it did make it kind of difficult for me. But overall, the flight back to Half Moon Bay was actually relatively nice. So the approach into Half Moon Bay to the final was kind of rough, I'm not going to lie. Look at this traffic pattern it wants me to follow. So, what in the world? So you got, gates that are, I don't know, most of the time they're, vertical. These are, horizontal at different angles, and I'm like, there's no way they expect me to follow that. I got passengers in the plane, but there's no way that's going to be a smooth, a smooth flight coming into this airport. That is super weird, especially banking around the corner. I just don't exactly get that. So I kind of disobeyed the traffic pattern here a little bit, I have to admit. I did try to do the best I can sticking with it, but I think if I followed that, directly, it just wouldn't have worked out. But this landing, I was trying so hard to make it perfect, but it did not really go that well, sadly. I was trying so hard, but because of the steep angle it had me come down on, I gained so much speed, so I put my flaps down to slow myself down, which honestly, maybe I could have made it here at full speed, but I don't want to be pulling G's when I got passengers on. I'm trying to have it be a smooth ride, not destroy my rating. Coming around this corner, I am trying so hard to slow it down. I got the flaps all the way down. And I am praying for this to be a smooth landing. I really don't want to mess this up. Like I said, I want a super high rating. It got bumpy down here at the end. My passengers were complaining. Yeah, I kind of screwed it up. And the descent right here, I dropped it way too quickly. And I tried pulling up, and like I said, I had the slightest bounce here coming at the beginning. And they dropped me down to a 13%. They hated my landing. And it gave me the usual speech at the end about, it's not easy to impress the locals or whatever it is. So, kind of disappointed. Look at this. So, the bump itself just, now that I look at it, yeah, probably a little rougher to look at from this angle, but I didn't think it was that bad. So, that's the end of my final flight of the day. I'm going to keep it to 3. I kind of wanted to do a few more, but I kind of feel like that's a little more time required than I actually have on hand. That's going to wrap it up for episode 2, so let me know what you guys think of it down in the comment section below if you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, stay tuned for episode 3, because we'll be doing some more missions and just keep grinding out this game. So, started the day at level 3 and ended the day at level 7, which actually, pretty decent. Unlocked some new regions to fly in, so overall everything's going pretty well, and I'm still really enjoying this game. So, we're going to stop here at the whole short point and call that one good for the day. My name is Master Steve. Thank you guys so much for flying with me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Kilo Hotel Alpha Foxtrot traffic Cessna November 266902 is taxiing to parking.